Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm really glad you're here. If you enjoy fun content and cool videos, you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Let's jump right in.
I'm a 14-year-old Norwegian boy, teenager. You can just call me Nico, and my English is not the best, so I hope you'll excuse me for that. It was June 19th, 2016. Summer started just 2 days ago, and I was visiting my dad for a couple of weeks. I loved hanging out with him. My dad was not only a dad, but my best friend. He was always the one that listened to me, the one that didn't judge me. He was always there for me. On that day, he told me he was going to the city to celebrate on his best friends' birthdays. I knew they were going to drink a lot, so I knew I wouldn't see him until tomorrow. The time was 18:30. I said goodbye and told him to not drink too much. The city was about an hour or so away, but there was a train station just a mile away from our house, which my dad was driving to. Then take the train to the city of Oslo. I watched him jog towards the car as the rain was pouring down and onto his warm, thick jacket. Not really a nice way to start the summer off. But I enjoyed the rain. I always felt so safe inside with a nice cup of warm coffee, the lights on, and my favorite YouTubers on my computer screen. I closed the door and locked it. When I was home alone, I always made sure to lock every way into the apartment. We lived in a very closed quarter neighborhood. Houses were lined next to each other, one apartment on the second floor and one on the first floor. I knew the apartment above me and to my left was occupied with nice and old people, the same ones who had lived here all their lives. The same ones who would give me candy as a little boy playing with his friends. I decided it was time to make time pass, because I also hated being alone, not having anyone to talk to. I went into my room, which was 2 feet into the apartment and to the right. I walked in and cracked open a Red Bull I picked out from the mini fridge I had. I closed my door and locked it. I always did when I was home alone. I sat down and got on my computer to see if anyone was on Skype. I saw that one of my best friends, who we will just call Kevin, was online. Before I decided to call him, I wanted to watch some YouTube videos. Fail Army, my favorite channel. Laughing and being distracted always helped me cope with being alone. It only hit me after checking the time that I'd been on the site for over 3 hours. I shook my head in disbelief and decided it was enough, and I jumped on Skype and called Kevin. I turned my webcam on and waited for him to pick up. It took a little while, but eventually he picked up. "What's up, bruh?" Kevin said. "Nothing much. I'm home alone though." "Really? Why didn't you tell me? I could have come over. We could have had our first LAN party of the summer. I didn't know I was going to be alone. Very last minute, my dad told me just a few hours ago and wasn't going to be home until tomorrow. My friend lived over 2 hours away, and I wasn't interested in having a LAN party anyway. We talked for about 3 hours before I started talking about maybe going off to bed. That's when I heard it. A glass in the cabinet in the kitchen, falling down and hitting the kitchen counter before smashing on the floor. I froze. My eyes popped up, and the feeling of tiredness faded immediately. My friend saw the fear in my eyes and asked me what was wrong. I was wearing headphones, so I knew whatever or whoever it was could not hear me. The apartment was well lit. I always kept the lights on so I wouldn't be scared when going out of my room. I had always, since I could remember, been terrified of the darkness. I thought this would keep intruders or burglars away, but no. It just showed all the valuable things to steal, or lack there was. Come on, man. What the fuck is wrong with you? And what was that shit that sounded like glass breaking? Kevin asked, frustrated. I signaled that he needed to be quiet. I quickly opened the Skype chat and wrote, "There is someone in my apartment. Call the fucking cops and tell them what's going on." My hands were shaking as I wrote out the message, as if I was a chain smoker who hadn't touched a cigarette in a month. He saw I wasn't bullshitting. He nodded and got out his phone. He knew my address and all the info the cops would need. He's my best friend, for Christ's sakes. Because this is Norway, situations like this are taken very seriously. They rarely happen, and when they do, the cops do not fuck around and are there within minutes. My friend, who had recently been in Thailand, had managed to get a hold of those cool butterfly knives. You know those in Counter-Strike? Anyway, he gave me one of those. I just wanted one to mess around with. But now, it was going to have its use. I left my computer screen on and minimized Skype so he could still watch me, but no one could see him. My desk was on the other side of the room and facing towards the corner. So Kevin had a view of everything in the room except for the window that was directly to the right of the desk. I hid behind the door to my bedroom with the knife ready in my hand. I got my phone and texted Kevin everything I heard, and he would further transfer to the operator who had told me that officers were on their way. 10 minutes passed of the intruder moving around all over in the apartment, searching for anything to steal. I heard him faintly through the door saying something like "where?" I couldn't make out what else he said. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears and feel every pound like a faint punch to my chest. He was carrying or holding something heavy. I knew this because I could hear him grunting every once in a while. I waited a little longer before I saw something terrifying out the corner of my eye. A light from a flashlight. As soon as I looked towards it, the person who was holding it turned it off. 2 big, brown eyes were staring right at me. I froze again. Looking directly into his eyes, a smile emerged from his wrinkly, dirty face, revealing dirty and bloody teeth. He started biting at me, like he was chewing something or tried to show that he was hungry. I heard a laughter coming from directly outside my door. "Buddy," the dark and growly voice said. "A man, maybe in his mid-40s. I know you're in there, buddy. My friend out there is staring right at you. I don't know why, but I decided to walk towards the window. I didn't keep my eyes away from him as I walked towards the creepy motherfucker outside my window, keeping the knife hidden in my sleeve. I also noticed my phone was buzzing like hell. I assumed it was my friend freaking the fuck out as much as I did. "I heard your phone," he said, and started hulking in laughter. You fucking idiot." He stuttered because he kept on laughing. "Your phone was touching the door, so I heard every single buzz," he finished, and there was a slight pause. He kept laughing and mocking me. "You know, I've done this for a long time, but never have I had such a great laugh from such an idiot like you, buddy," he said, while it sounded as he was finally done with laughing his old ass off. "What the fuck do you want?" I said, trying to sound threatening but pissing myself on the inside, still watching the man outside my window. "I want you to give me the key to this nice safe out here," he said. As I kept staring at the man, it came to me that my dad had kept an old safe filled with old documents in his office. "There is nothing in it, only old documents, not worth squat," I yelled out. I looked down on my phone, and to my surprise it was Kevin. I didn't bother reading them. I was just trying to think of what to do. The man hadn't mentioned anything about the knife. I heard him laugh again. "Can you prove it? Come out here and open it. and show me you're not lying. Oh, and by the way, I know your buddy on Skype has called the cops. The guy you're staring at has been out there for over 4 hours. This made me even more terrified, the thought of this fucking creep staring at me for so many hours. I tried to stall them while I begged for the cops to show up. Buddy, he yelled and started banging on the door. I jumped, but kept my eyes on the man outside my window, which had now started to giggle like a little girl. Either you open this fucking door, or I'm coming in and opening your fucking skull, he screamed. I saw an opportunity. It was stupid, but the only one I had. I needed to act fast as fuck and execute it perfectly. I had never killed anyone before. The thought of doing it made my stomach turn. I unlocked and opened the window in one quick motion. It took me maybe 2 seconds. I got out my knife and swung it towards the man outside my window, entering and piercing his throat and coming out the back of his neck. I saw the shock hit him as he opened his eyes wide open and started coughing up blood out of his mouth. I watched as the life drained from his eyes, and me feeling more and more alive. Even as he was dying, that sick fucking smile was still on his face. Now the adrenaline was really kicking in. I jumped out the window and stumbled over his twitching corpse, running as fast as I could, looking behind me every 2 seconds. When I was about 20 feet away from the house, I saw him open the door and looking around him like a hungry wolf, stalking a sheep. Yes, run, little rabbit. Fucking run, because I'm coming. He yelled at me. I saw that he was holding a bloody fire axe. Jesus fucking Christ. He was still looking around. I saw he noticed his dead friend and got even more pissed. I ran so fast, and let me tell, I'm a big dude all right. I'm no skinny guy. Even I was surprised over how fast I ran. I ran to a yellow house, maybe 500 feet away from the neighborhood. I banged on the door and called for help, until a bald man who was still wearing his construction work clothes and with a scruffy beard opened the door. I ran inside and begged him to call the police. The man didn't hesitate. A few hours after this happened, I was taken to the police station. I explained how sorry I was for killing that man, but I didn't know what else to do. Adrenaline and fear had gotten to me then. The police agreed with me that it was self-defense. But see, the problem is, I never saw my dad again. After he left, I never heard from him again. I now live with a foster family. And the reason I decided to tell people about this was because I received a letter a few weeks ago with just my name on it. When I opened it, all it said was, "I'm close. I keep looking over my shoulder. I haven't had a good night's rest ever since that incident. Jesus, what the fuck am I supposed to do? I don't know what the fuck this is, but it feels like I am slowly losing my sanity. I'm constantly paranoid over any little sound when I'm home alone. Shit." It happened a few years ago when I was a sophomore in high school. It seemed like just another November Friday night in my quiet home in Ohio. I live on the border of the country area, with a thick forest and, further on, a field across from my house. I should probably note that I only had a few houses surrounding me. Not really many of my friends lived where I was. There was the old couple to my left. They usually have family over on the weekends, but tonight it was quiet and calm over there. To my right, there was a middle-aged couple. They were gone that night, as they routinely work night shifts at wherever they work. Finally, across and far down to the left of my house was another nice couple who have a very sweet 4-year-old who always loves to come over and be with me and my 9-year-old brother. My parents decided to go out and be together for the night. Whenever they do this, they are usually out pretty late into the morning, and my brother was sleeping over a friend's house. I was tired that night, so I decided to stay home and enjoy a relaxing night at home while the snow began to fall throughout the night. It was mostly uneventful that evening. Some television early on, and then some Xbox to later on. I remember eating some rice and chicken that night, but it would be important to note also that I neither drank or did any drugs that night, so I knew what to come was real. The clock just struck 11 p.m. only a few minutes back, and I was well into a fun match of Halo when I got the feeling something was just wrong. I brushed it off as just me being alone and getting those weird feelings one gets sometimes when alone. Then, just as it began to slip my mind, I heard it smack. Smack fear gripped me for moments as I realized that sound was neither from me or my TV. It was much louder and clearer than anything that could have come from the TV. I turned white as I realized it came from the window right above the couch. And me, I turned around in haste and lifted the blinds to see no one. Nothing out of sorts. The snow was falling and everything looked disturbingly normal. Oh, I thought to myself, probably just rocks carried by the wind, or maybe snow or ice from the roof that fell. Despite this I was still gripped with this feeling that something was just wrong and that whatever hit that window was no accident of nature. I then decided to quench my nerves by going into the office and playing games or watching porn on the computer. Just something to get my mind off of that. For about 30 minutes it worked. I thought to myself, I'm just being silly and I should enjoy this quality time home by myself. About 34 to 38 minutes after my first occurrence, there came a hooped from the window to my right in the office. I wanted to throw up. I knew then that this was no coincidence, and that this was not of the weather or an animal. It was too consistent, too intentional. I immediately ran from my seat to the kitchen, where I grabbed the family flashlight and a large knife. One for investigation and one for defense, if what to come was as bad as my gut was telling me. I ran back down and shined the flashlight out the window into the yard and the forest. I saw nothing, except what I thought were light footprints from the window to the forest in the traced snow on the ground. My mind raced from what this could be to what could happen. I had never been embraced by this much fear in my life. I called my mum, hoping she would answer. Once I was able to reach her, I told her the events of the night, and she then said, in a hopeful yet dead serious tone, lock the doors. If it happens again, call the cops. Be safe. My parents were about an hour and a half away, and they offered to come home, but I refused, trying to be considerate of not ruining their evening together. I went to each door and locked them, to each window and locked them up to my room with a phone, a knife and a flashlight. I still rejected that this could be real, so I put on some music from my phone and put my earbuds in, hoping to fall asleep and wake up realizing this was just a nightmare or a bad case of my head messing with me. I was listening to Queen and on the verge of sleep when I thought I heard something in the completely quiet house. I took my earbuds off to hear AWHAC, K-WAC WHACK. With each beat, my heart sunk more and more. After a few moments it stopped, but I was too afraid to move from my bed, and I called my parents. Within about 45 minutes, my parents came home without further incident. By this time, it was about 3 a.m. I recalled as much as I could and showed them everything. Us three searched the outside of the house, with my dad holding his handgun in case we did find anything. Again, 7. Nothing was found. except for deep footprints in the several-inch deep snow now that circled the house several times, stopping in front of the windows and the side door, which upon inspection was beat and crushed in the center, with what seemed like a big hammer or blunt object. We waited in the house until morning, until my dad decided to go outside to the forest to see where the tracks led. When he came back, we learned that the tracks led to a small shelter that housed several photographs of our house and a small sledgehammer with pieces of wood stuck on it, with tracks leading to a road far across the field. I never stayed in the house alone at night for several years after this. My mum, for the first time in her life, decided to let me stay alone at home. I'm almost 24, but being an only girl, child raised by a single mother, means I'm more precious than liquid gold to her. I've been away at a university abroad for 3 years, but for some reason my mum never lets me stay at home alone. Never, ever. I was pretty psyched to be alone though. Unfortunately, I'm currently single, so there were no sexy times last night for me. Mum had left around 4 p.m. and I had stocked up on enough alcohol and junk food to last a week. As I said, I was not in Mumbai for the past few years and had lost touch with most of my old friends. Didn't matter, I was just here for a couple of months before going back to the UK to complete my masters. So I settled in quietly enough for the night, loaded up my DVD player with the first 2 seasons of Seinfeld and Dr. Strangelove. Weird combination. But that's me. Around 12 a.m., when I was drunk from the vodka and giddy from Seinfeld, I heard a loud meow bang outside my door. Now my mum's house is on the ground floor of this apartment complex in the Juhuantiri vicinity. I won't be too specific. The building is 6 floors high and has 2 wings. When I was younger, a lot of cats flocked to my house as I was on the ground floor, and I provided them with food and tickles. I guess my mum didn't really encourage cats, so it was a pleasant surprise that I had some feline company. It turned out to be an orange-colored tomcat who I immediately named Mr. Meowgie Weasley. And yes, I was that drunk. He was friendly and not too scared of human contact, so I assumed that he must be a half-pet. I gave him some water, which he gratefully drank. Temperature in Mumbai during the summer averages 38 degrees Celsius. Add tons of humidity on top of that. I didn't have cat food, so I just gave him this leftover fish thingy, and he ate that too. My mum had warned me not to open the door at night, but I figured I have security guards, plus my mum is weirdly protective. Meowgie left soon after, giving me an affectionate nose kiss and leg rub. The rest of the night was a drunken stupor, but around 3-ish I heard meows again. I assumed it was Meowgie, although the meows sounded almost metallic in a way. I opened the door and was sobered up in less than a second. Crouched down on the floor in front of my door was an old woman. She was sitting wearily and smelt like death itself. It was as if her feet were paralyzed or something, and her legs were all askew. There were open, gaping sores all over her body, and her hair was matted with this rust-brown thing. The cracks on her face seemed to run deep, like a few feet deep. Maybe the alcohol had thrown off my depth perception. It was highly disconcerting. I don't know why, but at that point I could feel a chill down my body to my hair, like my hair was electrified. I had these goosebumps and my throat went extremely dry. I'm pretty sure she heard my heart pounding through the net door. The thing that she did next chills me even as I write this. She opened her mouth and I could see that she had 0 teeth and let out this mechanical and eerie murmur. It was so loud it seemed to reverberate around my entire house and pierce my eardrum. It bored into my skull. Her mouth was black and the rotting smell was magnified 1,000,000 times. Her lips didn't move, the sound seemed to come from within her. Her eyes were not looking at me at first, but she slowly started looking up, as if scanning my body through the door. This one was the loudest, and I actually let go of the door to press my hands forcefully over my ears. I could feel a warm liquid trickling down from my ears to my neck. I was shivering and I was sweating. The creature finally locked eyes with me, and I swear it was looking into a portal to hell. She suddenly started to get up. It was horrific. Her limbs were creaking like an old Fiat, which won't start, and each creak was loud like a whiplash. I came into my senses and bolted shut my door. Just as I did that, I felt something rub against my foot. I shrieked like a maniac and looked down to see Myogi. He got in through my open window. Fuck, my windows were still open. The blood had left my legs, so I tripped over 1,000,000 things before. I shut all the windows. I immediately called the security guard through the building intercom and told him to check my lobby area, as I heard something over there. He came, checked, and called me back to say there was nothing there. I was too petrified to sleep, so I just locked my bedroom door and lay in bed with Miyagi, hoping for the night to get over soon. My eyes were too damn weary to stay awake any longer. I checked the clock. 5:52 a.m. Holy cow, fuck, this had been going on for 2 hours. It felt like 10 minutes at the most. My ears had indeed leaked blood, and it had dried down from my ears to my shirt. I couldn't go and wash it off now, I was just exhausted. I'm an atheist, and I try not to believe in the paranormal, but this was no human. No human could make sounds like that which perforated my eardrums and vibrated. Throughout the house, 6 a.m., my mum would be home in 3 hours. I lay down a little more comfortably. Then I heard a Wario outside my bedroom door, followed by 3 hard knocks. Hello, good people of No Sleep. I think I have one for you. So, this was about 3 years ago when I was 15. I was one of those guys whose parents wouldn't trust him with a pencil. But this night was different. Very different, actually. I had made complaints prior to this that my parents needed to grant me more independence. So in the true spirit of trust, they decided to leave me in charge of the house for the whole of Friday night. The following is an account as best as I can remember, though 'tis hard to forget of that night. ... Parents would be gone when I came back from school. Spent whole school day celebrating on the playground. I got back and immediately started up Minecraft. A few hours of mindless entertainment ensues. I'm at my laptop in the dining room, some kind of Toshiba, I still have it. The curtains are open, atop our glass sliding door. Eerily, a layer of condensation has formed, covering most of the pane outside. Creepy but not unmanageable, I soldier on. Pound this guy in full iron, but get interrupted mid-loot by slap SLAP2 noises right from the window, to handprints on the glass. I don't dare move. The darkness is scary enough without this shit happening to me. The cupboard under the stairs yields tennis rackets aplenty. I manage to take one out, my eyes still locked on the window. My character's death is preferable to my own, so I close the computer. I slip out of the room and turn off the light. The way I figured it is that there's definitely someone outside. They're most probably human, and they will invariably have similar issues with the darkness as I also. I didn't want them to be able to see me inside. Moving about, I slip out into the hall, tennis racket gripped firmly. I'm moving towards the back door. Did I lock it? Do I want to even go near it? The sitting room is an inky pit of potential death, so I decide that it really isn't worth going for the home phone. I'd rather stay alive and be scared. Bam! A sound from upstairs sends me spinning around to look up at the steps. I move backwards, a warm sensation trickling down my leg. I know what it is. No need to look, just keep on looking up into the dark heavens of the second floor. I step back once more. Famp. The lights come on upstairs. Shit, shit, shit. I don't leave the house. I let my mind explore all the possibilities of what's out there, waiting for me. And then I realized that I had accidentally walked back into the light switch a few times to embrace my inner horror movie avatar and check out the upstairs. I turned the lights on, right. It should be safe. I make my descent. Naturally, I'm walking backwards up the stairs as most of the landing lies behind. All rooms have their doors closed except for my parents' room. Do I check it out? Nope. Then, as if it weren't bad enough, the lights shut off. I'm up on the landing by now. Darkness has enveloped me. Nothing to do. This is surely when I die. I back down into a corner for safety, looking frantically across the landing and down the steps. Maybe shutting the light off in the dining room wasn't such a good idea. I hear some rustling coming from the downstairs area. Someone's in my house. A draft rolls in and up to meet me. Door must be open. Maybe it was the wind. Maybe it was a power cut. But what about the fucking handprints? I steel myself. Eyes have started to adjust to the dark. Can now confirm that it is the back door that's open, like I used to do. I slide down the steps on my bum racket out in front of me. In the hallway, I momentarily slip on the product of nerves, regain control and sneak into the kitchen. No one's in the kitchen, but the draft from the open door is freezing cold. I can't hear any other movement behind me in the other rooms. I march up to the door, grip the handle, and I'm about to close it. Now, you know when your mind forces you into the stupidest decisions ever. Yeah, while I looked out into the garden, ... a man, really tall, like 68 or thereabouts, is standing, silhouetted against the streetlights beyond my fence. Close the door, lock the door, don't sleep the entire night. My parents came back to find the urine. But that wasn't all. They also found a few broken windows upstairs, ... Let's just say that they don't leave me on my own anymore, and I'm fucking glad of it. This story comes from a friend of mine who works in a nursing home. I've been friends with her for a very long time, and had worked in this place for a while myself. Believe me when I say that nursing homes are the modern-day equivalents of insane asylums of the 1900s. People are scared of hospitals because people die in them. People should be terrified of nursing homes, where piece by piece your mind and body degrade to nothing and you're still alive. I could tell you countless stories about residents talking to people who aren't there, things moving on their own, noises you hear when no one is there, or writing found from residents passed away long ago. However, sometimes, in a place that is probably crawling with the supernatural, it's not always to blame. If I had still been working there when this happened, I'd have quit all over again. I was on my medication round. When we go to each of the residents' rooms with their different meds and check in on how they are doing, it is usually pretty boring, and I just walk around for about 3 hours from floor to floor. The CNAs are doing much more running, and you'll usually see them going around and about. This night was particularly slow though, and we all mostly kept to ourselves, doing our own thing. Now, you have to have a little bit of backstory for this all to make sense. The facility had just recently switched the way the staff communicated with each other. We previously had walkie-talkies of sorts that were numbered 12015. So when you called someone from 001, that would show up on the other person's walkie-talkie. We just made the switch to carrying phones with us, and these used a different numbering system. So, I was making my rounds, I got a call. I didn't think anything of it, and picked up the phone. There wasn't anyone on the other end of the line, and I said hello a few times, just to make sure. Then I hung up, thinking it was probably a wrong number or a telemarketer, about 20 minutes. Later, I got another phone call, and again, I picked up the phone. I could hear paper rustling on the other end of the line, though, so I knew someone was there. I said hello a few times, but didn't get an answer. I looked down at the screen to see the number and was shocked to see 002 now. I didn't know what had been done with the other walkie-talkies that we used before, but to my knowledge, they were still in the building. I thought it was weird, but figured that one of the other staff must just have been using one. Perhaps a phone broke or something, I thought to myself. In hindsight, I went to a lot of lengths to rationalize. All of this. Later that night, when I was done with all of my rounds, I went down to the nurses' station. At around 9 p.m., most of the residents are in bed, and all of the staff will gather on the first floor nurses' station to go over how the night went. We were all there, and again the phone rang, but this time I didn't pick it up. My co-worker got to it first. She kept saying hello, so I knew it must be a dead line again. Before she went to hang up, I stopped her, and with a big lump in my throat quickly said, "No, don't hang up. See what the number is." She looked down at the number and said weirdly, 001. We were all kinds weirded out and shocked because we all made the same connection at once. "Isn't that the old phones?" One of the other girls said. I explained to them all that I had been getting calls from that number all night, but figured one of them was using it. They all shook their heads and exclaimed that they didn't know those were even still here. One of them quickly pointed out, though, that it had to be coming from somewhere, and if it's that number, it must be in the building. We were all freaked out and pretty scared. The halls are really quiet and dark at this time of night. Noises are coming from everywhere, and if we're being honest, these places are very unsafe. They're unlocked almost all day with people coming and going that you have no clue about. You see someone come in and just assume they belong there. Well, we were freaked out enough that for the remaining hour of the shift, we all took up the buddy system and didn't go anywhere alone. We were determined to say that it was just a fluke in the phone system and that nothing was actually going on. The old walkie-talkies used to behave weirdly all the time. Why should these new phones be any different? When third shift came in at 10, we didn't want to freak them out for the entire shift, so we all made an agreement not to say anything to them about the phone calls. Me and another nurse walked out to our cars together, and I drove home feeling all the better for being out of the building. When I woke up the next day, it was only about an hour before my shift was about to start, and I was in such a hurry I didn't even check my phone. When I got to work, my boss was waiting for me and asked if I had been contacted by the police yet. I looked at my phone and seen a few missed calls from an unknown number, so that must have been them. She told me that one of the third shift girls noticed a man in the room with one of our very far-gone dementia residents and walked out without him knowing she had seen him. She and the rest of third shift locked themselves in another resident's room and called the police and waited until they arrived. They don't know how long he was in the building, but he had the 001 walkie-talkie on him. What made it even worse was the room he was in. I had been in several times the night before. He was probably hiding somewhere I couldn't see him, and I didn't even know it. It goes to show you that sometimes the weird and scary isn't always supernatural. That doesn't mean it's not just as bad or worse though. This story comes from a friend of mine who works in a nursing home. I've been friends with her for a very long time and had worked in this place for a while myself. Believe me when I say that nursing homes are the modern day equivalents of insane asylums of the 1900s. People are scared of hospitals because people die in them. People should be terrified of nursing homes, where piece by piece your mind and body degrade to nothing and you're still alive. I could tell you countless stories about residents talking to people who aren't there, things moving on their own, noises you hear when no one is there, or writing found from residents you know passed away long ago. However, sometimes in a place that is probably crawling with the supernatural, it's not always to blame. If I had still been working there when this happened, I'd have quit all over again. I was on my medication round. When we go to each of the residents' rooms with their different meds and check in on how they are doing, it is usually pretty boring, and I just walk around for about 3 hours from floor to floor. The CNAs are doing much more running, and you'll usually see them going around and about. This night was particularly slow though, and we all mostly kept to ourselves, doing our own thing. Now, you have to have a little bit of backstory for this all to make sense. The facility had just recently switched the way the staff communicated with each other. We previously had walkie-talkies of sorts that were numbered 12015. So when you called someone from 001, that would show up on the other person's walkie-talkie. We just made the switch to carrying phones with us, and these used a different numbering system. So, I was making my rounds, I got a call. I didn't think anything of it, and picked up the phone. There wasn't anyone on the other end of the line, and I said hello a few times, just to make sure. Then I hung up, thinking it was probably a wrong number, or a telemarketer, about 20 minutes. Later, I got another phone call, and again, I picked up the phone. I could hear paper rustling on the other end of the line though, so I knew someone was there. I said hello a few times, but didn't get an answer. I looked down at the screen to see the number and was shocked to see 002 now. I didn't know what had been done with the other walkie-talkies that we used before, but to my knowledge, they were still in the building. I thought it was weird, but figured that one of the other staff must just have been using one. Perhaps a phone broke or something, I thought to myself. In hindsight, I went to a lot of lengths to rationalize. All of this. Later, that night, when I was done with all of my rounds, I went down to the nurses' station. At around 9 p.m. most of the residents are in bed, and all of the staff will gather on the first floor nurses' station to go over how the night went. We were all there, and again the phone rang, but this time I didn't pick it up. My co-worker got to it first. She kept saying hello, so I knew it must be a dead line again. Before she went to hang up, I stopped her, and with a big lump in my throat quickly said, "No, don't hang up. See what the number is." She looked down at the number and said, weirdly, 001. We were all kinds weirded out and shocked because we all made the same connection at once. "Isn't that the old phones?" One of the other girls said. I explained to them all that I had been getting calls from that number all night, but figured one of them was using it. They all shook their heads and exclaimed that they didn't know those were even still here. One of them quickly pointed out, though, that it had to be coming from somewhere, and if it's that number, it must be in the building. We were all freaked out and pretty scared. The halls are really quiet and dark at this time of night. Noises are coming from everywhere, and if we're being honest, these places are very unsafe. They're unlocked almost all day with people coming and going that you have no clue about. You see someone come in and just assume they belong there. Well, we were freaked out enough that for the remaining hour of the shift, we all took up the buddy system and didn't go anywhere alone. We were determined to say that it was just a fluke in the phone system and that nothing was actually going on. The old walkie-talkies used to behave weirdly all the time. Why should these new phones be any different? When third shift came in at 10, we didn't want to freak them out for the entire shift, so we all made an agreement not to say anything to them about the phone calls. Me and another nurse walked out to our cars together, and I drove home feeling all the better for being out of the building. When I woke up the next day, it was only about an hour before my shift was about to start, and I was in such a hurry I didn't even check my phone. When I got to work, my boss was waiting for me and asked if I had been contacted by the police yet. I looked at my phone and seen a few missed calls from an unknown number, so that must have been them. She told me that one of the third shift girls noticed a man in the room with one of our very far-gone dementia residents and walked out without him knowing she had seen him. She and the rest of third shift locked themselves in another resident's room and called the police and waited until they arrived. They don't know how long he was in the building, but he had the 001 walkie-talkie on him. What made it even worse was the room he was in. I had been in several times the night before. He was probably hiding somewhere I couldn't see him, and I didn't even know it. It goes to show you that sometimes the weird and scary isn't always supernatural. That doesn't mean it's not just as bad or worse, though. My first foray into moving out of my parents' house was me moving in with my older sister. It was a 2-bedroom apartment close to our university, and I believe there's no better roommate than a sibling you're already used to living with, and who you have an awesome relationship with. She had the master bedroom, as was expected due to seniority, and I had the second bedroom directly across from her room. A few months into our new living situation, she starts dating a Persian guy. Great dude. As their relationship continued, she spent more and more time out of the house. This was awesome, because while the two of us got along great and had no problems cohabiting, having a place completely to yourself is the best way to go about it. Most weekends, the apartment contained just her cat Alfie, who mainly just did his own thing and would surface every once in a while when he wanted some attention. And me. One particular weekend, my sister left town with her boyfriend. They left on a Friday, and I was the one who took them to the airport. Friday night, I wasn't feeling too hot, so I decided that rather than going out as I originally planned, I would just stay home and relax. I mostly played some EverQuest, judge not, but my body was beginning to ache, so I called it a night relatively early. It was around 10:30 p.m. I took a quick shower, put on my Sound of Rain like rainymood.com loop, and decided to go to sleep. While trying to sleep, with my body aching the way it was, I decided I'd sleep on my back. Just after 5 a.m., I awoke very abruptly, as if something startled me. To say I awoke is a bit of a misnomer. What actually happened was sleep paralysis. If you've never experienced that before, it's one of the most frightening ways to wake up, because you're mentally nearly awake, but your body is completely unresponsive. I only get this when I sleep on my back, which is why I try to avoid it unless necessary. I was lying there, conscious, unable to move, freaking out, but I had the sense to remember that it will pass, and I would regain motor ability shortly. The sound of a thunderstorm coming from my computer's speakers didn't help. My body ache was still present, and even though I couldn't move, I could still feel it. In my youth, I would get what's colloquially referred to as the old hag syndrome, a condition in sleep paralysis where you feel as if there is a demon of some sort on your chest, constraining your breathing. Some people will actually see red, lucidly dream it on their chest. Others merely feel it and construct it in their minds. As a kid with a vivid imagination, I would often see it. Luckily for me, as an adult, that didn't happen. But my paranoid thoughts of it happening at that very moment gave me enough of a panic to simulate the feeling of actually seeing the hag, after what felt like hours but was actually seconds. I started to break out of it by being able to wiggle my toes. The relief experienced at that moment can't be described. I quickly propped myself up and sat up on the edge of my bed as I tried to catch my breath. I chuckled at what I had done to freak myself out and stood up to use the restroom. As I walked to my bathroom, being in the second bedroom meant my bathroom was not inside my room like the master bedroom. I heard a noise coming from the other side of the house. I assumed it was the cat and continued. After I finished my business and headed back to my room, I heard it again. I stopped for a second in the darkness to listen. Nothing. I started to enter my room and heard it again. I called out for Alfie, the cat, and received no response. Then again, that's not at all surprising, considering cats don't really give a shit about you or your beckoning calls, unless there's something in it for them. I went in my room and turned off the thunderstorm sound, then stood there waiting for the noise again. The noise was strange. It wasn't quite timed, per se, but it seemed to follow somewhat of a pattern, but not anything precise enough to be predictable. The best way I can describe it is to think of someone with an axe chopping at a tree. Each swing isn't perfectly timed, so you can't really predict with any exactitude when it'll happen next. But you have a general idea based on past swings. It alarmed me a bit since I knew for a fact I was home alone. I cautiously proceeded to move around, slowly, as I looked for the source of the sound. As I approached my sister's room, I noticed the door was closed. Her door was rarely ever closed, even when she was home. Even when she was home asleep. I momentarily froze, then I heard the noise again. However, this time it was much louder. That noise was so loud it scared the shit out of Alfie, the cat, and I heard him jet from his position on the couch directly into my bedroom, presumably under my bed. My heart started to race. If it's not the cat making the noise, what the hell is... I was scared, so I ran to the kitchen as fast as I could and grabbed a knife. The kitchen was next to the front door, as far as possible from the master bedroom, but definitely still within earwind shot, so I felt a bit more in control. Feeling marginally more confident, I called out, "Who the fuck is there?" No response. I'm serious. Who the fuck is in there? I have a knife. My sister had a small katana collection, just 3 swords, and I would have loved to have one of those shits. But it dawned on me that it was in her room, in clear view of anyone who would be in there. That thought scared me a bit more, because there I was yelling at some intruder about how I'm going to cut him with my little steak knife when they potentially had 3 very long, very sharp, very durable Japanese samurai swords. I was about to yell again when I heard something that chilled me to the core. I heard a voice. It was a man's voice, a very, very deep voice. I couldn't make out what the hell it said, because it was pretty muffled through the walls. The noise happened again, but this time it was louder than it had ever been. It sounded like a struggle almost, but there were no voices beyond the man's voice. The voice boomed louder, almost as if chanting. and while I still couldn't make out what it said, the ominous sound of the voice, coupled with the fact that there seemed to be someone in there ransacking the place and their access to murder, weapons, made the hairs on my back stand up. I couldn't handle it anymore. I knew for a fact my sister wasn't home. I received a text from her earlier in the day when she arrived in New York. No one else on the planet had a spare key to that apartment besides my father, and my father would never just go into our place unannounced in the middle of the night. It had to be something else. I ran out of the apartment as quickly as I could. I didn't lock the door. I didn't even close it. I just ran. Fuck the elevator. I ran toward the stairs. When I finally made it downstairs and entered my car, I immediately took off with no hesitation whatsoever. I thought about calling the police, but I called my dad instead. I got to my parents' house. They lived very close by, and my dad was already waiting for me. I told him my story, and he said I should have called the cops. I guess he was right, but people make irrational decisions when in fear. The sun was already coming out, so the ominous feel of it all was starting to fade away. My dad and I decided to go there together and survey what was happening from a distance. We parked in my spot and looked up at my apartment door. It was slightly open, just barely, but that's because I didn't really close it on my way out. We decided to get the condo security guard involved. I told him my story and he came with us. We took the elevator up and slowly entered the apartment. It was silent. No noises at all. The master bedroom door was still closed. My dad grabbed a knife, the same knife I was holding earlier, and we all crept up to the door and just stood there for a second while the security guard gripped his walkie-talkie for dear life. My dad asked, "Is anyone in there?" "Nothing. There are 3 of us," I said. My father reluctantly grabbed the door handle. He, very quickly, turned it and pushed the door open. The room was pristine, just as she had left it. Nothing was out of place. The window was open. She does that from time to time for the fresh air. But it was the 5th floor with just about impossible access through the window. So, unless Spider-Man was moonlighting as a deranged criminal, no one was making their way through that. At that point, all of us relaxed a bit and let down our guard. The security guard looked at my dad, and my dad looked at me. He wasn't in disbelief. He just seemed sort of like he was internally questioning whether my story was true, or if I was letting my imagination get the best of me. I started explaining to him that I'm not crazy, and that everything I told him was the truth. My dad seemed to believe me, but the security guard was having none of that. That's when my dad looked at the bathroom door. There was a thick, dark ooze that was dark red, almost black. Instantly, all of our guards went up again. The security guard freaked out like I've never seen anyone do before, and he ran out. I could hear him on his walkie-talkie frantically reporting exactly what's going on, the apartment number, saying to hurry up, etc. My dad and I stayed, and he called out yet again for someone to respond, but alas, no response. While there was no noise emanating from the bathroom, we did start to notice a smell. It was strange, not quite pungent, although close, slightly sweet, but mostly like tar. "It smells a little like tar and sewage," I said. Right there, my dad's guard dropped and he opened the door nonchalantly. Tar everywhere. The toilet destroyed. The ceiling mostly collapsed. Bath liquid products all over the place. As it turns out, my sister had left her bathroom light on. That light is tied to one of those air fan things to vent the shit smell out of the bathroom. I guess something happened where it overheated and started melting the tar in the ceiling. The periodic sound I heard earlier was the fan spinning and throwing tar all over the place, as well as pieces of the ceiling falling off. The loud crash was when the fan piece broke off, fell, and landed on the toilet. The hot tar weakened the ceramic and the fan, as well as other parts of the ceiling. Falling broke the toilet into various pieces. The red tinge in the goo seen from the bottom of the floor was just a cocktail of shampoos, conditioners, body washes, etc. As for the voice, why was the room door closed? My sister had a small, battery-powered boombox, and in it was a language-learning Farsi cassette tape. I guess the damn cat turned it on while messing about, and the batteries began to run out, which explains why it was speaking so slowly and deeply. Why I couldn't understand what was being said, and why it eventually stopped. That same cat seemingly also closed her bedroom door by playing with a piece of decor, some rope thing, and pulling it, thus closing the door. He's done that before. I don't know why it didn't occur to me earlier. Like I said, fear makes you think irrationally. I had never before been so scared in my life. But I'm at least glad I wasn't on the verge of being murdered. That would have really messed with my weekend. When my sister returned from New York that Monday evening, we were in her room and I told her an abridged version of what happened. She found my misfortune hilarious. The bathroom was still a mess, but it was going to be fixed the next day. She wasn't too thrilled about the mess her bathroom was in, and the fact that she needed to use mine, until it was fully repaired. At least my room is. Still clean, she said as she opened the small boombox's empty battery compartment, and my eyes widened upon the realization. But you could have at least put that katana back in its place.